Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike, the best business radio program in the area. I'm your host, Mike King, and I appreciate you being here with me. The views expressed to your mind have no connection to, support, of, agreement with any other host, information, or ads on ESPN. I don't work for this station. My program just airs here on a daily basis, and I'm grateful for that to be able to bring these game-changing folks to you. On the Mic with Mike, we highlight partnerships, people, social enterprise. We also touch on some issues of the day. We'd like to thank our show sponsors, Tom Childry, the credit card guy. If you have credit card merchant issues, Tom Childry is the man. He is a master at making that work. He helps you get paid faster. Andy Taylor and Junk Luggers. If you have moving issues with your things around the household that you'd like removed, make sure you give our good friends Andy Taylor over at Junk Luggers a call, as well as Chef Mama Michelle's Cafe, world famous Mama Michelle's Cafe on the South Side. Ladies and gentlemen, this is ESPN Richmond 106.1. That's where you find me. 5 to 7 a.m. every day. I'm also on the Choice, which is 105.3 FM. That's gospel. I don't talk sports much, ladies and gentlemen, but when I do, like I say, we bring out the best and the brightest. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you a Hall of Famer, Mr. Bobby Dandridge. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me on your show.
All righty, we're going to get right into it. Let folks know that so Richmond got you. You've done good. Put Richmond on the map here, showing Maggie Walker. So I see all that head to Norfolk State. Let's tell the early story of Bobby Dandridge.
Growing up in Richmond, in the West End section of Richmond, basically learned my skills on the playgrounds up in the West End, from the older guys that played. Was fortunate enough to go to have a guy named Russell Williams, who coached me in junior high school at Randolph. And I give him a lot of credit because he taught me the fundamentals of basketball, the dribbling, the passing, the rebounding, and taught us at an early age how to be as my basketball career continued. So I give the West End and Randolph, Mr. Williams, a lot of credit. Continued on to Maggie Walker, where I've always had good coaching, especially foundational coaching from guys like George Johnson, Mr. Johnson at Maggie Walker, Mr. Gardner. And then there were the older guys, Monk Rooks, a couple of guys from Virginia Union University that allowed me to play with them at an early age, which helped develop my confidence. So Richmond definitely, not only was I educated there, but educated there academically, but also got a good solid foundation for basketball, which... And in Richmond, basically, it wasn't so much being a great scorer. Richmond was the type of situation where you tried to play the whole game, offense, defense, be a good rebounder, be a good team player. And that carried me a long ways. It took me to Norfolk State, where, I basically rode the bench my whole freshman year.
But let me ask you, was that hard after you had stood out? Was it hard sitting down? I'm just asking.
Well, it was hard, but then it wasn't, because I recognized that the guys that were playing in front of me, they were better than I.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was just a bitter pill to swallow when my two college roommates, another guy from Maggie Walker, Bonaparte, and a guy from Durham, North Carolina, they both were playing at least about 15, 16 minutes a game. So when we walked back home after the game, I didn't have nothing to talk about. And so that became a motivation for me. And the summer between my sophomore and my freshman year, I traveled up to Washington, D.C. a lot and played summer league basketball. And, I got a chance to play against high school and college All-Americans, got a chance to play against pros. And that I played well during those summers. Everybody wanted to know who is this skinny guy from Norfolk State, but my coach, Ernie Fears, back in Norfolk State, he was following me during the summer of my progress. And I guess even when I went to Norfolk State, he saw some things in me that that led him to believe that I could be a good player. I don't know if he was selfish. He wasn't thinking about a good NBA player. He was just thinking about me being a good player for Norfolk State.
Well, that's what they say about the coaches. When you got the horses, it helps you be a better coach a lot of times.
Oh yeah. But then, I got to give him some credit because, at Maggie Walker in Richmond, we played a slow down game. When I went to Norfolk State, we ran 4 miles a day from the time we set foot on campus until the first game. And even after running the 4 miles a day for 6 days a week, we would still practice 2.5 hours. So anytime you can survive that type of condition in a situation, it builds you mentally as well as physically. And, I went on to have a great career at Norfolk State. And by the time I went to the NBA, the fast-paced game was a part of my game anyway, which was developed at Norfolk State. So that sort of laid the foundation of my formative years. But I think the key to my success at the high school level and at the college level was I was committed, and basketball was just the number one priority, even placing that before some social activities.
Okay. Let me ask you, when did the light come on that you think that whether it's, that you thinking I may be able to take this to the next level at the NBA? When did the light come on? You're thinking I'm pretty good.
Well, when I went up to Washington, D.C. right before my sophomore year, I was challenged against a guy named Jerry Chambers, and Jerry Chambers had been the number one draft choice for the Los Angeles Lakers, maybe in the 1967 draft. And I played very well against him during the initial months of going to Washington, D.C. I take a step forward is that I played real good against him, and the light came on that if this guy's the number one draft choice and I'm 3-4 years behind him, surely I got the potential to go to the NBA. And so that was when the light came on, going into my sophomore year. The light came on that, hey, I may be able to get this done if this guy's a number one draft choice. And so at probably about 19 or 20 years old, I began to think that you can make this work for you, but you got to stay committed to it.
All right. On the mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond, talking to Hall of Famer Bobby Dandridge here with us. All righty, sir, you're the kid, as you said, the skinny kid from Richmond, now you're at Norfolk State. Shout out to all the HBCUs out there as well. So, I went to Lincoln. My son went to Lincoln. So shout out to HBUs being formative. All right, you get the call for the NBA. Now, folks who've never had that, we don't know what that's like. So how does that happen? That's what we want to know. Well, are you sitting at the house? The people are there. All of a sudden, there's a phone call. Next thing you know, how does that work?
I'm in class.
What?
Because once basketball season's over, I had to figure out how I was going to pass these classes. HBCUs, yeah, you're great at sports, but you're going to get this schoolwork too.
I tell people, everybody on campus know you're not going to class. Everybody from the people in the cafeteria, the grounds workers, they all saying the same thing. Boy, you're wasting your people's money.
and for folks, it's a village within a village and the people on the custodial staff, they got as much clout on campus as the president.
For sure.
The discipline in you. But, to get the call, my college coach got the call. Won't no cell phone. So they called my college coach. They was looking for me on campus, and they found me and told me, okay, you got drafted in the 4th round by the Milwaukee Bucks. And I mean, being from a historically Black university, I wasn't really disappointed. All I wanted was a shot.
True.
Because, in the summers, I would go to DC, Philadelphia, Atlantic City and play, testing my skills against guys that were Division I All-Americans and guys that were in the NBA, and I played well against them. So all I really wanted was a shot, and Milwaukee drafted me. I was the fourth person taken. Kareem, of course, was first, and then there was another. In fact, their number 2 pick was a guy out of Rutgers, and he was the forward that they really expected to play. And if I made the team, I would definitely be almost like a practice player. But my impact immediately was the first day of rookie camp. I and the number 2 pick had to play 1-on-1. And we had to play 3 games of 1-on-1 to 7 points. And I won all 3 of those games. And that's when immediately the head coach, Larry Costello, began to show me some attention.
Okay. So you're getting the attention, summer, rookie camp and all that. So I'm from Philly, so the whole basketball scene definitely is very important. So when I'm sure you went there, you tested your skill.
In Philly, I played. I think it was a place called Sherman or Sherwood. I played up at a playground called Tuscan that in Philly. And Philly was a big part of my development because I had an uncle that lived up near a place called Sears Junior High in Philly.
In Mount Airy.
Yeah. And so a lot of my basketball experiences in the summer came from playing in Philly. So I got a chance as early as 16 years old to test my skills against the so-called better Northern players.
Okay.
But when I showed up in Philly, I showed up one summer. And then for the next 2 or 3 summers, the guys were always looking forward for me to come to Philly, and I would always get chosen once I went back to Philly. So Philly is a part of my development too.
Let's talk a little bit about the years at with Milwaukee. So you're rolling with some Hall of Famers there, some of the best of all time. So you made your reputation there, beating the guy who was going to be the guy. Now that makes you the guy.
Yeah, I'm the 4th round draft choice who on opening game day, our rookie years on national TV, and the only reason the game was on national TV was this was Lou Alcindor's first debut as a pro.
Let me ask you, what was it like when you first met him? What kind of person was Lou Alcindor back in those days?
He was sort of a withdrawn person, especially if he didn't know you. But the icebreaker for he and I was that most New Yorkers who didn't play big time college ball, most of them came to the South to play. So he and I knew the same. He knew a lot of guys that played it at historically Black schools.
Okay.
And that was the icebreaker with he and I. And then I think going through rookie camp, and he saw that I could play. And, game identifies, recognizes game.
Yes, we do.
And so he saw that, hey, this kid here can play. And pretty soon they stopped joking me about being from Norfolk State because I was playing well. But Kareem and I, we didn't hang out together, but we just had a mutual respect for each other as teammates.
So let me ask you, so now the Big O comes to town. What's it like when he comes in? What do you pick up from Oscar Robertson?
Just sheer excitement about playing with the Big O, a class guy who expected perfection all the time. Some of his best performances were probably in practices. He just led us, directed us. I mean, how can a young team not be excited about the Big O?
For sure. So when people look now, people are my age, I'm 61. When you see Russell Westbrook and playing at that, when you start talking about averaging a triple-double, a few years ago, that was unheard of.
Yeah.
Unheard of. And then people start to see, hey, there was this guy named Oscar Robertson who was doing stuff like that when NBA wasn't on TV all the time. You just heard the legend of people like that. So let's talk about winning the championship. What was that like for the guy from Norfolk State and Richmond?
Well, I was used to winning at Norfolk State. I mean, so winning for me was nothing new. And really, it took me about 4 or 5 years to realize the significance of winning an NBA championship, because I said, okay, well, I've won the CIAA. I'm used to being in the CIAA finals. 3 years later, when I realized that even some of the great superstars, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, none of them at the time had won a championship. And so it was pretty well acknowledged that you may play in this league and be a great individual player, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win a championship, because in the early years, Boston or the 76ers dominated everything.
Let me ask you a question with that right there. When you play a team sport and you don't win, how does that bother a person, or I guess taint your legacy? Because you hear the whole Shaq and Barkley argument, or you were great at what you did, but you were on a team that maybe you never had the right team around you. How does that affect you?
Well, just from a joking stand.
Oh, you're getting killed. You're getting killed straight up.
You're getting killed straight up, and the worst killing comes from your homeboys.
Of course, because they know it bothers you.
But you know always in the back of your mind when the great ones get together, maybe it's a retired players association. No matter how great you are, guys begin to talk after their playing careers are over about how many championships did you win? And they will throw that out on the floor just to be critical of somebody that has had great individual statistics. But the ultimate in a career is winning that championship. And I know guys who have had great individual careers, but not winning that championship still haunts them.
That's true. So being from Philly, it's not like we win a bunch of championships. And there are people in Philly that we love. Barkley never really got the love in Philadelphia that a lot of people thought. That he was good, but then when he left, it was okay. There's 3 people. I'm in Richmond, Virginia now. On the mic with Mike. We're here We're talking to Bobby Dandridge here, Hall of Famer, here talking about sports, life, and everything in between. I talk about Richmond. I talk about Virginia. There's three guys who come to mind when you talk about Philadelphia: Iverson, Moses. When you talk about those two guys right there, that just says something about Philadelphia. There's a love that people in Philly have, and Michael Vick. We, as Philadelphia sports fans, because they gave it all. We can't judge people by championships because we never win enough of them. We judge you by hard work and being one of our guys, one of the hard workers. You came and brought it every day that you were there. And then if you didn't win, hey, you know what? You're one of our guys. So forever and ever, those three will be Philadelphia icons. Moses came and delivered. That's for sure. Michael Vick, he delivered. He delivered something. When we beat Washington, that was enough right there. We didn't care what he did. The humiliation that he put on Washington made life worthwhile. And Iverson, what can we say about him in our town, which is something, he just set the whole town on fire. Really quick, let me ask you about the idea of championship teams being put together.
And your adopted son in Philly is a guy named Hal Greer.
Hal Greer, yes, for sure. The original number 3.
Hal Greer's wife is from Richmond.
Oh, really?
Yes, Mamie Cannon, and her mother, Mrs. Cannon, her mother and father taught in the Richmond public school system. So Hal Greer, and I'll tell you a quick story. I was sort of mischievous in high school. and Mrs. Cannon told me at the beginning of the school, said, Bob, if you just give us a break for 2 or 3 days in class, I got a surprise for you. Well, on the third day, who comes into the class at the end of school but Hal Greer?
Philadelphia legend.
And nobody else in the school knew who he. I had the opportunity on me because most days at the end of the practice, he would want to get up 100 shots. On 3 days, he never missed any more than 3 jump shots out of 100. And that profoundly affected me because that let me know what I had to do to make it into the NBA. So Hal Greer is an adopted Richmonder.
I tell you what, that's Philadelphia royalty for basketball.
He
was a classy, the classy player with that one. All right, let's talk about the call from the hall. What's that like? That Bobby Dandridge going to the Hall of Fame.
Well, I knew the vote was coming up soon, and one day I missed the call and I looked at it and it may have been 217 or 417. And I said, I don't know who this is. So I went and looked it up and come to find out it was Springfield, Mass.
Uh-oh, you know what they're talking then.
And I'm saying,
it can't be.
This thing. And so, of course, I kept the phone with me for the next couple of hours, and sooner or later, the call came, and I was speechless because along with the call came instructions that this has not been announced to the press, and you must not tell anybody.
And you ready to explode?
So I'm in the barbershop one day, and the fellas in there talking trash, and I got to keep my mouth closed.
It was hard. You got the ultimate jacket, the jacket saying, I'm going to be in there with the greats. And here you got to take it in the barbershop, which is hard.
Yeah, I got to take it in the barbershop. And so the first, so I just had to tell my wife because, you know, my wife is hard on anybody that's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not in the Hall of Fame.
She said, my Bobby should be in the Hall of Fame. All of a sudden you said, hey, baby, check this
That's
out.
right.
I got this call.
So we watching the game one night, and she hard on somebody. So I said, look, let me tell you something. And when I told her, she, you know, tears just started coming down her eyes. You know, my 45, my daughter Shayna, who lives in Richmond, she was excited, but I couldn't tell her because she's a Facebook junkie.
Oh, so, and you know, the word would have hit the street immediately. Look what my daddy did. My daddy in the Hall of Fame. and the word is out.
Yeah, the word. Now they ready to put me out of the hall before I got there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we were going to have Bobby Dandridge here, but he couldn't keep a secret.
but it was just humbling, and it sort of makes you reflect back on the village of people that have made this possible, and some of them didn't have nothing to do with basketball, you know. And I tell people that it's going to be at least 100 people up on that stage with their hands on the ring and 100 people wearing the jacket, because I just bring with me to the celebration so many people who have played an intricate part in my life. And that becomes humbling, you know, when I think back to the Hal Greer story, you know, just how many times would a 16 or 15-year-old get a chance to work out with a guy like Hal Greer? To play against pros in Washington, D.C., and to have the type of parent that
they were hard, but they put you on the right path. Let me ask you, when you see young people today, what's a bit of advice when you see the young folks going chasing dreams? You had a dream and the dream came true.
Be coachable. Be coachable, because, and it may not be basketball, but if you want to be a chemist, if you want to be an entertainer, there are individuals out there who have succeeded at whatever your dream is. And today, especially in the Black community, you know, these successful folks out here are willing to give back if they are approached about giving back and giving you instructions and directions on how to be successful. So I you know, my predecessors, the folks that came before me, you know, I grew up in a neighborhood with Willie Lanier.
Wow.
And we lived like 3 blocks apart, and you know, Willie a couple of years older than the other guys, and all we wanted to do was be like Willie Lanier.
Well, he was terrorizing people on the football field. That's for sure.
And we used to take Willie across town when we went to hostile playgrounds.
You took the muscle with you.
We used to take Willie over to a place called Chimaraza, which is right over in Church Hill. And after about traveling with us for a couple of games, he said, I know why y'all taking me, y'all. We would starve Willie, but wouldn't let him play that much.
He was going to set the tone.
Yeah.
So let me ask you real quick, what do you think about the teams now stacking super teams where players, before players were kind of run by the teams and the league ran things, players can kind of determine where they want to go and who you want to play with. An old school player like you, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm not in favor of it, but it shows how much ownership is willing to share of the goodies that come along with owning a team, because a part of that ability is through free agency. Free agency has changed the complexion of the game, which allows players to be almost part of, well, they are part of ownership.
That's for sure. I determine where I want to play.
Yeah,
and if I don't want to play here, next thing you know, I'm going to force a trade. And the other place, instead of them being mad, they're happy. Like in Philly, when we got Pete Rose, I hated him as a Cincinnati Red. But when he came to Philly, you know what?
Oh, you loved him.
He's our guy.
I mean, and you can't argue with a guy like Pete Rose coming to your team.
Not at all. He'll do it. Well, obviously, he was doing almost anything, but on the baseball field, he gave it all that he had. And that's, as a player, you can't beat that. And that's what the players are doing these days. But sir, I'd like to thank you for. All right, so let's talk about the ceremony. What's all happening and all the festivities that go with that.
Well, the actual ceremonies are this Friday and Saturday. Friday basically being an award ceremony for other contributors to the game of basketball. But at that time, the individuals who are going into the Hall of Fame, we will receive our Hall of Fame rings and our Hall of Fame jackets. And then Saturday night is the actual induction of the inductees into the Hall of Fame. And that's where we will be giving our induction speeches. And once all that is over, you are officially a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
In there with Dr. Naismith, the guy who thought it up.
But ask most of the young folk, most of the people that play it might not even know who that is.
They think Kobe invented the game or Jordan invented the game. See, when I look at you as a player, it goes back to some of these other, like the slick point forwards who are out there now. You know, I think of the games. Oh, you know what? And I got to tell you, I was corrected. Well, I don't know if I was corrected here. I said Bobby Dandridge, and he was, I put out Kareem and the Big O. And somebody shouted me out on Facebook and said, if you're going to use that name around here, you got to talk about the Bullets. Because that's what he's known. I'm like, okay, I'm from Philly. I remember him that way. They're saying when you use that name around here, it's got to be with the Bullets, with Wes Unseld and those guys.
And unfortunate for Philadelphia. and the reason that I went to Washington, and the reason the Bullets wanted me to come to Washington, because the Washington Bullets knew that they could not do anything in the Eastern Conference because the 76ers had McGinnis and
the Big Mac attack. Yes.
But the Bullets in particular felt that with me being in Washington, that would be a neutralizer.
Which it was, because clearly you won.
We won. We won. So yeah, and then the Bullets gave me an opportunity to put my game on display and to show my true leaderships and in every player's career, you want to have a team that you can say, this is my team. And when I went to Washington, Coach Marta said, Dandridge, this is your team. I know we got Wes and Elvin, but we not going to go any further than your performance. And that is, that was just a hell of a thing for a coach to tell a guy who's coming from Norfolk State or HBCU player that, hey, I got these two Hall of Famers here, but we're not going to go any further than what Bob Dandridge's performance allows us.
The one thing I remember is those guys pulling down the board, and you're on the wing, just flat out running, and the long outlet hits you right in stride.
You got a tremendous memory.
That was it. That was it. All righty, so we'd like to thank you for coming on the program. You live here in Richmond, or you live elsewhere?
No, I live in Norfolk.
Okay. Shout out to all the good folks down in 757. We'd like to thank you for coming on the program. Do you want to give information? Oh, really quickly. How long did it take before the information that you told your daughter that you were a Hall of Famer before it hit the street? Did it take long? On the mic with Mike. ESPN Richmond, that's where we are, 106.1, where you find us every day, 5 to 7. I'd like to thank Mr. Bobby Dandridge, Hall of Famer, being on the program. I think we lost him. That's technology these days. We'd like to thank you for coming on. Shout out to Floyd Miller for helping with the connection there. ESPN Richmond, that's where we are, on the mic with Mike. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.